being 7:01, I call the Town Hall School Building Committee to order. I know a few members told me they weren't going to be able to make it tonight. I heard from John Doherty. He said he was not going to be able to make it. Paul Ruggiero said he may be late because he has a meeting. And, I did hear from Glenn Brand, superintendent. He said he won't be making it tonight.
Well, what's the quorum, George, just in terms of any votes that have to take place?
Well, I think we got to take a vote. We have to make sure.
Well, forgetting now how many people are on the committee. Is it 7 or 8?
We have.
Greg Bendel?
No, Kevin.
We have 8, so we have to have, what, 5?
Right.
4 here. 4 of us.
5.
Oh, 5, sorry.
Floating it.
We could do it if we have to.
Is Kevin's not here either?
I think he may be coming in. As I understand it, he came here at 6 and thought the meeting was at 6. I got a text from him and I told him that it was at 7.
Did
Okay.
everybody got the agenda and got the reminder, right?
Yeah.
I got the reminder, yes.
That email.
Okay. Okay.
I thought that's what.
I obviously told you 7.
Oh.
Hey, da 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 da.
I pushed it out to 7 because the school,
I could be
there's
wrong,
2
but we
folks,
should double
3
check
folks from
that.
the
Alright.
school.
Yeah,
And
that's a good
they
point.
had a meeting
I wasn't,
4:30
didn't think of
to
that.
6:30.
Well, I'll do a roll call now to see who's present.
Yeah, yeah.
Kevin Kyra,
We'll pass that to Kevin.
Pardon me.
Diane Allen,
Here,
Paul Malorani,
Here.
Jack Holloway,
Yeah.
Jesse Fenley.
Over here somewhere.
hey, George, will you slow down just a little? I don't know everybody and I'm trying to get it all for you.
Welcome to my
Okay.
world.
Kevin Kyra, Diane,
Paul Malorani,
Paul Millerani.
Jack
Okay.
Holloway,
Yep,
Jesse Fenley,
Present.
myself. Paul Ruggiero is not here. John Doherty is absent. All right. Oh, Paul Ruggiero just walked in the door.
There you go.
Hey, Paul.
Thank you, everyone.
Just
Paul.
getting started.
Is there another chair up there? No, I think.
Oh,
Sit down here with me, Paul. I know you're probably sick of me by now, but
These are comfortable chairs.
yes, that'd be great.
Evening, Paul. All right. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from March 16th? Do we have any discussion on it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Paul doesn't get a copy. It's with the school department.
No discussion?
Nope.
Do I have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept the minutes.
Motion from Jack Holloway to accept. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Paul Malorani. Take a vote. To approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, abstain, it wasn't at the meeting.
Kevin, one abstention from Kevin. Thank you. All right, Dan, our OPM, the status on our site survey.
Site survey's completed and has been transmitted to the designer in CAD file and in PDF. So, he put a slide together on it, which I gave you, just to give you a general idea of it. I mean, that's obviously not with all the detail on it, but it's enough for you to understand. It's got the topography lines on it and the resource area to the right of the site.
The rest of the site, I mean, everything else looked pretty good, other than,
Well, the resource area is a little bit bigger. I would like to get a botanist out there to really go through it. You know, it was done, when they did the survey, it was kind of done in the winter, and reading their one-page report, it was basically based on trees, and there's a mixture of upland and wetland trees, so with wetlands, there's a percentage that trips the line. I think they did the best they could in the winter when there was snow on the ground, when they did their instrument survey. All right, so, but we can talk about that as we get a little further along, but I would like to, spend a little money and just get another botanist out there to take a look, if that's all right with the committee.
Bill, you're going to discuss this when we get into the presentation?
Yes, yeah. I can tell you what my opinions are on it as well, but then I'm not a wetlands botanist either. But, we were obviously there in the summertime, and I didn't see any evidence of it at all. We were through there a couple of times, and so I guess it's possible it's seasonal. I assume that a wetlands botanist can tell the difference. But I was surprised.
This is erring on the worst case scenario. So we want to get it right and get the Conservation Commission to approve a wetland line, which is the proper step. Right.
This darker gray area delineates.
Delineates where they think the line is. The circle is.
So yeah, at the center there, the kind of geometric polygon shape, that's the flags that they put in there, and that what the surveyor went back out after the flags were put on, and they surveyed those flags. And then I imported that survey into our drawing, and then I put the kind of concentric rings on there, which represent 25, 50, 75, and 100-foot setback from the edge of the wetland flags.
Okay. That wetland is obviously on the side of a hill, too, so.
Which is really
Phil and I
weird.
were just talking about it. I've never seen a wetland on a hill before, and I've been doing this a long time.
Okay. All right.
I'm not saying it's not.
So it was a surprise for us.
So this right here, you're talking, right? So I understand,
Yeah.
is the wetland area?
Yes, so, yeah. If anybody wants to take a ride up there, you could see the upper portion of it pretty easily through the trees from the rear of the parking lot at the Buzzell. And then if you go down to the bottom, you can see where it's running down the side of the hill. And then it looks like where it's been plowed, they plowed up to push the snow off the edge of the paving, and have gone up into the soil a little bit and built a kind of a little berm right near one of the catch basins. And that seems to be holding some of the water. And causing it to back up a little bit, and then it finds its way around those little berms and makes its way into a catch basin in the parking lot.
Well, very familiar.
Water doesn't mean wetland, though. Wetland is 100% based on vegetation and soil, hydric soils and vegetation, both at the lower level and at the upper level. So we want to just get it right, because we're going to have to, just for permitting anyway, regardless of the solution.
So any decisions about the location of the building are gonna have to be on hold until we clarify what the parameters of this wetland are, or whatever it is, right?
I think it makes sense to confirm it.
Right, I would think so.
I do.
And isn't this what the issue was with the Swain School? I thought that underground water was what flooded out the Swain.
Well, there was a basement in the Swain, and I think he has that on one of these sites on your presentation.
Last time we were here, you asked us to model the Swain so that folks could see what that looked like when it used to sit on the site.
I know there was a basement that was in there, so there was sub pumps in there that were pumping, typical.
Well, I don't want the first floor of the new town hall to flood, because if it's a basement.
That was one of our first questions,
Right.
make sure that we're not going into the ground, we're actually at slab grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, slab on grade.
Well, we are going into the hill, and we'll have to relieve the pressure on the backside of the building. I mean, but that's not uncommon.
And
George, who did the wetland delineation?
It was done by the surveyor. I don't know the person that did it, Diane.
The company,
The company that did it was Grady and Associates.
Grady and Associates.
So
Brady?
Grady, out of Kingston, Mass.
Yeah.
I mean, the report we got was pretty flimsy. I mean, it just identified upland trees and wetland trees, and I think they just did the best that they could at the time they did it, and I think it warrants further discovery.
So we haven't, in your opinion, then, waited too long to do the survey, have we? Because I'm a little concerned that, Phil's done all this work, and now we might have to move the building or change the site of the building. Is that a possibility?
I guess depending on how this works out, it may be a possibility, but I don't know that there's any way that the survey could have really been done any quicker with the winter weather.
That's all part of the feasibility study.
Wow.
The-
I mean, we're doing our diligence, that's why we're here.
in this phase, right?
That's why you want to do this stuff now. And we wouldn't, I mean, if we had surveyed all 4 of the sites, back in the summer, we may have found out some of this sooner, but then you'd have surveys on a couple of sites that you may not be using for anything else. So I think it made sense to kind of go through the steps that we're going through. So is it possible that this is going to stick and we'll have to deal with that in terms of building location? Sure. One of the slides I have to show you tonight shows what a building might look like if it pulls back from the edge of that a little bit. And then you could certainly look at, another viable option was to put it out near the street. It's one of the options we talked about. From an urban planning standpoint, it's a nice spot to put it, but it is a little tall. And burying the first floor halfway into the hill allows you to kind of absorb half of one of the floors in terms of the overall height of the building, and so that was a kind of a perceived benefit. That was my impression from the decision from the committee. But I think we could still make that work. And I think when you see the images of what the Swain looked like, I think a lot of folks forget that was a pretty big building that sat out on that flat portion of the site.
I think Selectman Kyra had a question also.
Yeah, when they do this survey, whoever is gonna do a second survey on this, cause and effect, right? There are residents that live on that side where the wetlands are. So if we start digging and doing whatever, will this group who are doing the survey, will they be able to determine if this water is going to affect those houses on that street on the side? Can they predict that or determine that, since they're the professionals?
I don't think that the surveyors would be involved in that, but our civil engineers, once they get involved, if we're going to do anything with a wetland resource, we're going to make sure that we're managing the water in a way that's not going to have an impact beyond the site. Other than the fact that if it stays where it is, you can see that the wetland setback extend onto these people's properties. I mean, if it stays there, then that wetland setback, they're going to be dealing with that if they decided they were going to develop something on their property.
But if you go out there,
But water-wise-
also if you go out there and look at it, especially from the Bazell, there's like a little depression, and then it goes up. So they're above the Bazell. Those houses are above the Bazell. So it goes up there.
Is that Lomac? Is it Lomac?
Side street?
Yeah.
I just,
But it's a good,
no one
it's a
has
good
said anything
question.
to me from that neighborhood, but I'm sure that that's going to be
Well,
an issue for them if all of a sudden, they're putting in sub pumps and.
Sure, water management is one of those things that we're going to need to do, and we're going to have to show conservation and the planning board and everyone else that we're not going to make things worse. The pre and the post conditions
We
are going
not
to
only
have to be
cannot
improved.
make it worse, we also have to make sure that the wetland water, if it's getting 10 gallons today, it gets 10 gallons when we're done, so that we don't affect the wetland. We can't dry out the wetland by putting the building there either. So, that's all part of the engineering part, but we don't have all the parts and pieces to do the engineering yet.
And at least seasonally, it flows down the hill, but then it flows into a catch basin. It does not, and I don't know what that really means. It certainly is not it's not a stream if it goes into a culvert, like the Rivers Protection Act doesn't kick in or anything. It's, so,
And is it possible that some of that runs off from that parking lot from the senior center, which drains into that area?
oh, sure.
Plus runoff from everybody's yard that comes down, it's because.
I'm sure that's what feeds it,
Which I
yeah.
have.
So we're mixing a whole bunch of issues. We're talking about water, and we're talking about a resource. And we're talking about existing conditions with the parking lot. And they really have to be separated. We have to identify what the resource is first, so that we can protect the resource, because the Conservation Commission is going to demand it, and the law requires us that we protect it. Then we have to deal with the hydrogeology of it. And we would have had to do that if it wasn't a wetland. For this, even if we built this building and there was no wetland there, Kevin would have to demonstrate that we're not pushing water somewhere else. So, I mean, this is not a step that we weren't prepared to do. It's gonna make the calculations a little different, but it's still gonna be the same calculation, just with different inputs and different data.
Yeah, we heard early on, I think from you, that we had a groundwater issue up on,
Right.
in the side of that hill. Now it's on the surface, but we still have to manage it, right? And so it's no surprise that we're gonna need to manage it and that we can.
That'll lead us on to your presentation, Phil.
Okay, so we've got, we made a little bit of progress on the, so program review, I think we're getting pretty close on the program. We made a couple little tweaks on the program based on some of the feedback we got at the last meeting. So I think we're pretty close there. The only real kind of thing that's outstanding there is Public Works, whether that's,
I did say
we
that I
didn't-
would have that for you, and I do. They will not be part of this building.
Yeah, you also wanted to wait until Selectman Kyra was back before you voted to take Public Works out. So,
Well, we did not vote to put them in. There was a
well, you
discussion.
asked us to see if we could fit them,
Yeah.
and we did.
and so they're in the program right now. And so we reorganized this a little bit for the benefit of the folks that weren't here at the last meeting. The program numbers pretty much all stayed the same, but I reorganized them a little bit and put the departments next to each other in the matrix. Not expecting anybody to read it.
I just said I can't read it, and I'm next to it.
Okay, don't worry about it. It's probably it's just not fine enough to be able to read it, but, so there in red is the Public Works Department that we put in there as kind of a placeholder. And what we did is, we heard that there were 6 people potentially, and so, we kind of assumed that they were kind of partway between, in terms of their space needs, and based on what we've done in the past for similar departments, kind of partway between engineering and the building department, in terms of what they're gonna need for plan storage, and they've got big tables they use to lay stuff out and so forth, and so we have a similar space for them, and it's a little bit, so the space as a placeholder kind of is halfway roughly between these two departments. And then in addition to that, we also have, there's a multiplier and everything, and so there's a little bit of a multiplier on top of that, and then we also put in a placeholder for a storage space for them. And again, the storage space they have is shown in red here, and it's kind of partway between those two departments as well. So between the department, the storage space that we have, and then the multiplier, it's about 2,000 square feet. And if we're talking about taking that out, then the overall number down on the bottom will go down by 2,000 square feet roughly. Down closer to,
Could I ask why first we were to investigate to put them in, and now, what's the reason that they are not gonna be part of this? Did I miss something here?
Yeah, well, I spoke to the superintendent down there, and kind of very similar to the Public Buildings Department. They like to be able to be at the location where the job assignment and everything is delegated out in the morning, and being able to oversee their staff and the function of the day-to-day operations, instead of being in 2 separate locations, so. I had that discussion with them, so.
Go ahead.
I had that discussion, and they prefer to stay in the location that they're at. And I did tell them that in the facility master plan, it wasn't until 2028, possibly 2030, that we'd be looking at something else. So they're willing to stay there at that time, until that time.
But that was the department originally that the town manager said that they had problems with flooding.
They are in the water department down at Brown's
Water
Crossing.
department,
Right. That area does flood. And at certain times, it was 100-year.
But why even debate it? They want to stay there, so I think we should just move on and remove them, right?
Right, they asked to stay, so
Why
Yep,
even?
okay.
is that something that we need to take a vote on? I don't recall voting them in, so I don't believe we need to vote.
It was exploratory when we mentioned it.
It was, you asked if we could fit them in, we demonstrated we could, and it was up in the air even when we were going through it, and
Right.
that's why it's in red.
Right, exactly. So Phil, you can remove that.
We'll just take them out.
Let's take them out.
Okay. The only other thing we did is that we had added a workspace in one of the departments for the school administration, and we misunderstood we had it in the wrong department, and we moved it into the right department.
Okay.
And that is, I'm going the wrong direction. And that is reflected as well in the program diagram. We took that desk out and we moved it over here. This is the draft space for the Public Works Department, and we'll pull that out again. Okay, so a survey update before we get into the plans. You've all seen this drawing, so I won't belabor that, but one of the things that we did want to do is take a look what the impact would be. I think if you kind of scroll back and forth between these things, you could see that this building, where we had shown it last time, this was our scheme E that we were looking at last time, and if you overlay these things, you could see we're right in where that, on that slope portion of that wetland on a hill, which I just get a kick out. So you can see that that is problematic for us, and I would think, I took a look through the zoning bylaw. We've also sent this off to our civil engineers, but they really just got it on Friday. He said he could take a look at it this week, but I haven't heard anything back from them yet. As soon as I do, I will update you all on what their feedback is. But I couldn't find anything specific in the zoning bylaw about how far back. You gave us some
Yeah,
information.
I spoke
earlier.
to the conservation, Valerie Gingrich today, and I think that's something that we'll need to set up a meeting to have a discussion.
I really think we should do the diligence,
I believe we have to.
because the wetland really needs to be defined, and they need to approve the line, so, I mean, that's part of the process. I mean, they may determine it's, isolated land subject to flooding. There's 100 ways this thing can go.
And if I remember correctly, you said 15-foot no build and 50-foot for buildings
Yeah.
is preferred?
No permanent structure is preferred, so that would be a discussion with Concom.
50 to 15 is,
65. Can we do that?
no, I mean, between the 50-foot line and the 15-foot line is,
So, that again, that's an overlay. And the plan that we had done based on the GIS map and the assessor's map and so forth, you can see they're pretty close. I try to make these the same scale. They're pretty close. But the survey did provide us with a little bit more additional information. And the layout that we had based on this parking lot, it really didn't show up in anything that we had, and we couldn't see where it went under the trees and so forth. And you can see on the survey, it actually goes off on an angle, and it's a little bit further back. And it is pretty close if that's where the edge of the resource is, and so the idea of adding additional parking back here probably wouldn't work. Also, when we counted the parking spaces up here, we counted something in the 30s, and there's 40 spaces up there according to the survey, so there's more up there than we thought. And so that would have a little bit of an impact on these numbers over here. So one of the things we did is we took, you'll recall, we had a scheme D that was very kind of long and thin and went all the way back almost to the setback line. And one of the things we did when we went from D to E was we shrunk it down in the length and we thickened it up front to back. And so we pushed that again, and we did that again, and we come up with what we're calling scheme F. We only had time to kind of put this thing together, lay it out roughly inside to see if it works, and it basically does. It's really the same plan, it's just compressed in one direction and stretches out in the other. And we laid that on here, and it would have a lot of the same elements. So there's a 3-story portion here, and then there's a 1-story portion here with the meeting rooms in it. It's in front of the Buzzell. You can see in red right there, that's where those stone stairs are. So it moves over in front of the Buzzell. But what we did is we tried to stay back away from at least 25 feet from the way that it's been flagged, and see if something fits. And so that is certainly a possibility to do something like that. The other possibilities are obviously to go back to something like the scheme B that we had that showed a building over in here. And then there may be other possibilities, but if we need to stay out of this area, I'm not sure that over close to those neighbors is gonna be great anyway. Building over here, kind of where the Swain was, I'm not sure it's gonna be real popular with the neighbors on School Street, based on what we've heard. So, I think, kind of going a little bit further, I could see a possibility for doing something in the place of the Buzzell, if anybody was interested in taking the Buzzell down. I guess that's a possibility, but I think the easier things to do would be to look at what the possibilities are for building in the setback, depending on exactly where that shakes out to be, or up close to the street. Again, from an urban planning point of view, I think it'd be nice to have something up here closer to the front, in terms of the kind of creation of a downtown. But there is that kind of, the height issue, which putting it into the side of the hill helps to conceal a little bit.
Right. That was the whole thought process. on it.
Right.
So can I ask just quickly with this mock-up, obviously the orientation is a little bit different, but am I to understand that it's a bit wider? Like from parking lot towards the Buzzell, it was, what, 60 feet before?
Yeah, so it's gotten wider in this
Yeah.
direction, and then more
And then
compressed.
shorter this way, right?
And then we slid the whole thing this way.
Right, okay. Thank you.
And that's if there's a water issue.
Well, there's something there, but if it's completely seasonal and it's, that'd be too lucky.
Well, so
I don't think that
It's a resource issue.
I don't think-
Not water, I don't know that water's the right term. It's a protected resource. I mean, a wetland is a resource.
Does that help?
And that's, yeah.
thank you.
Or it's- yeah,
That determines if it feeds a tributary.
No, it's not that. It's, a wetland is based on vegetation.
Right.
So the vegetation has to be protected under the Wetlands Protection Act. The water is a different issue that, the civil engineers are gonna have to deal with. They're gonna have to deal with it with respect to the building too. I mean, all the roofs have to be collected and put into the ground. You can't just dump the water out like in the old days. So there's a whole different scenario that we have to deal with on the civil engineering side, Mr. Chairman. But the immediate concern right now is to protect the wetland and get the wetland line correct and get the wetland line certified by the Conservation Commission. And I really would like to get a nice report for that, because the Conservation Commission's gonna demand it. They're gonna wanna know what the low brush is and what the trees are and what the percentages are to determine what the resource is and where the actual line is.
I think we should have those answers before we meet with them, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
So I believe, like, years ago, you used to be able to recreate wetland areas.
You can.
Are you able
Yep.
to do that? So
You can.
bridge slightly and recreate that area?
Yeah, it depends on the resource, and the rules, the last time I did it, was you needed to replicate it 1.5 times what you were.
But that might be different. Each town has their own local bylaws, so, in our town, it's 2 to 1. Because they expect half of it to die. But I think state law is you gotta have a 1 to 1, and it's gotta take. So, we're not even there, because we don't even really know the exact line yet and what the square footage of the wetland is. And I just think we need to do a little more
we dealt with
diligence on
that
it.
with the high school, remember?
Yeah, over.
But because it was not attached to the area, we had to move, it was 3 to 1.
It was 3 to 1. There you
But
go.
that was because we were not.
Oh, you got to move it into a different part of town?
Right, so.
Okay.
And that's,
Doing it on the same
Right.
site.
And we
Exactly.
down the town park and
Exactly.
took the parking away from behind the
Right,
backstop.
exactly.
Right.
That and the pedway behind the Wildwood, and, right.
Trick here is you
Okay,
have to
yeah,
lower
back
the
there.
grade,
Yeah.
and so that
Right.
it would stay wet, and it's in the trees. So lowering the grade with all the roots and everything, it's gonna be really complicated.
yeah.
So the second part of my question is, how long is it gonna take for us to get these answers? How long will it take to get a botanist out there and,
Well, the good news is we're off for a month.
okay?
Because if you recall, at the last meeting, we agreed this would be our last meeting prior to your town meeting. And that our next meeting that we're gonna have, we were just gonna quickly review the
Presentation.
presentation for town meeting. So, we have sufficient time to have a botanist go out there and do a report. As long as, you guys let me go get a botanist.
What do you need from us?
It'll be under 10,000, so I don't think I need anything but a signature from the town manager. So, it's kind of like the survey, you know, the surveys were under 10, so.
So, George, can I just ask a question, please? So
Sure.
then, just to clarify, then, the person who did the wetland delineation was not a certified botanist?
No, they may have been, Diane, the report I got that was attached to the survey was a one-page handwritten field report. It wasn't a bound report that you get for a wetland, you know? It was enough for them to tell you where the flags were, for them to go out and survey where the flags are. So I think it warrants, we're gonna have to do it anyhow. So we might as well do it now and get the wetland line approved by the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, can we also
It's good
maybe
for 3 years.
see what conservation has on file? I mean, I know that Paul Looney may have some of this, so.
Yeah,
see
we
how
can
it
do that
compares
too.
To what we have.
Yep. Know that.
No, no, go.
I know at one point there was some discussion, Terry had wanted to look into extending the parking at the senior center back into that hill, and so I think Jamie McGaldy at the time, Paul may have been involved, did some work on that, so there may be some background to some measure.
Yeah, I mean, with wetlands, because they move and they're vibrant, the line's only good for 3 years. So even if you have something from 3 years ago, the wetland may have receded, it may have gotten bigger. If you've dammed it at the bottom, it's probably gotten wider. So, you know, we have to look at all of that. And that's why I think it would be in the best interest for the project for us to just get a really good report done on it, because we're gonna need it for permitting anyhow.
Okay,
Josh, just a couple of things.
very good.
How many parking spots are up at the Bazell portion?
40.
What'd you say, 40?
40.
And I recall, Jeff, you mentioned that that would be more than enough for the employees. I don't know what it would entail with the school as well.
Yeah, we have about 40, I think the number I counted at one point, 40 roughly employees here.
Because I'm looking at this design, this picture, right? And if you took where the Bazell School is now and went straight down into that building, like an L shape, you could probably eliminate the third floor, which I think people would appreciate, and you could put the school department where the Bazell is going straight over to where the building like this.
An L-shaped building,
Yeah.
2 stories.
So if you did this, you made the school portion come down here, all right, and then this goes down to 2 floors from the town hall. This way here, and I don't think you'll lose any space, and you're staying away from the wetlands, and you're going one straight section. You see what I'm saying?
Dan said the same
I
thing.
said the same thing.
On the phone.
I said on the
like
phone,
2 days ago.
I said, there's nothing wrong with an L.
That's right.
That draws the building down to 2 floors.
But I was gonna go the L the other way.
So one
I was gonna
floor-
go around the
one-
Bazell.
One floor from the Bazell,
That goes into the town hall, and that 1 floor from the Bazell, which takes up this huge area,
yeah,
becomes the school department, which is the top
or
floor.
whatever it may be.
Or whatever it may be. And then
That could be your
and then the
large
other 2
meeting hall,
floors,
yeah.
the other 2 floors is the town hall. And the meeting room still stays there. You know, that this section still stays there. The school can come right into here.
Can I ask a question regarding the Bazell? So, will taking down the Bazell be a lightning rod to the community?
Well, certainly the historical commission, I know, has expressed concerns about both the Bazell and the Roman House. There was a recent, I think at the finance committee
That was
meeting,
1935.
there was some conversation to that effect.
The Bazell.
I mean, there's no question that the Bazell is at the end of its useful life without serious money.
And I certainly think the residents in that area would be appreciative of a two-story building rather than a three-story building. And it looks to me, I'm not an architect, but it looks to me that the school department going right from the Bazell right into that town hall looks like it is as much as the third floor would be for them.
And you'd be, the Bazell's right on the street, and you'd
And
be
then you
pulling it
have-
back.
Yes, then you have the employees pulling it back, and if 40 parking spots is not enough, I think George and I had talked that there is potential to increase that parking area. You could probably put in another 10 spots. So you'll have 50 spots up top for the employees, for both the town and the school, and you leave the bottom half vacant for the students across the street, and you know, for the potential events that we have throughout the year, the July 4th, the car shows, and
So when he develops this, because we're gonna have a month off, he's gonna develop this. I'm getting a sense that we're gonna develop a scheme.
Mhm.
Can we do the opposite too? Go around the Bazell the other way, so that we don't take the Bazell down?
show show an L shape the other way.
Yeah, show an L like this,
Yeah.
and then an L like that.
Yeah.
In case there's, outrage over the Bazell, we can go around it.
I don't have a problem with that. The more design, the more options you show, the better. I've always said that, the better we are. You know, and sometimes I get
Dan,
in trouble for saying that.
what if you said you're putting a retaining wall up on the first floor, behind the first floor.
Well, the foundation becomes a
Foundation
retaining
is
wall.
retaining wall. Why can't we just cantilever the second floor out the back?
Over the
Yeah,
over the resource?
so the way the land is going,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, that, and then you can put a slab and grade there and.
Oh, what he's saying is doing, a two-story here and a one-story here,
Hang it out.
hang it on the L. So that the,
Oh, like park under the edge of it or something?
so on this piece it would be one story, on this piece it would be two-story, and then you'd have your meeting room here.
Yeah.
The building's
Same thing
here.
Kevin's saying, but in
Building's here,
reverse.
Right?
Right.
Yep.
This is
I'm
two
saying the same
stories.
thing.
Sure.
Kevin's
Make it
saying
over
the
here,
same
And the
thing.
second floor
I
will
think
come
you
out
have that,
this
Phil.
way.
Yeah, I get a little sketch right there.
We're done. We can go home.
Now, that's the final design, right?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Tell me what color you want.
We're bringing it to town meeting.
Phil, you want my services? You want to hire me, Chris? None of that.
Send me an I-9 and.
All right.
But you're right. I'd like seeing it the other way. I mean, but that's fine. Show both ways. But I think
That way, if there's
I
a,
think we'll like those
because the
designs.
design will be very similar either way.
Yeah, and the key to it too is if you can fit 50 spots in the back, then everybody just walking right into the building that way.
And the only other
Employee
Nice and
parking.
easy. The
Right.
employee parking.
You
Yeah.
probably still need some parking, 'cause
Yeah, you can
school-wise,
still have parking down in the other parking lot.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. For visitors and for extra employees.
Hit your VIPs.
And the only thing I would
Well, people
bring up
have
too
in,
is that at this point in time,
Yeah.
until there's a voted town meeting, this is the senior center.
Oh, sure.
Right?
It's not
That's
going
correct.
anywhere
Yeah.
At this point in time, so,
Yeah.
Good point.
so maybe the other L.
We'll
Bring
look
us
at
all
both
the
of
L's
them.
you can, and
I think looking at both of them.
Well,
makes sense.
to Kevin's point, I think you want to answer all the questions. You want to
Yeah.
show all the
Yeah.
options. You wanna-
absolutely.
The L is what we took from Everett to,
Right.
North Station. In the old days.
He gets up and says,
through
hey, what about
Thompson
this? We
Square.
can- And if we can say, well, we actually looked at that,
We
and
looked
this is,
at that.
this is one of the
Yeah.
reasons why we didn't, that's great to have that answer, sure.
Feasibility phase.
All right.
Good. Okay.
So the common element in each of those scenarios, though, is that the meeting space is going to be kind of the anchor, so to speak, on that corner of the L. So whether the L runs along, a portion of it runs along School Street, connects to the meeting space, and then goes up along the parking lot, or the L runs up the parking lot and takes a left at the upper end there. But in that instance, I guess the meeting room would be down at the closest to the School Street of the lower L.
Yeah, the reason we did the meeting room there was because we were listening to the comments, which was, it's too tall a building, and that breaks it up and steps it up off the, you got your meeting room and then you got your building.
Yeah,
So leaving the meeting room in that corner will always make that proportional to the
Right.
structures on the other side of the street.
Yeah, I mean, I think, certainly I think each of these options should be looked at. Just kind of, my immediate thought is that the approach that Kevin was suggesting, where you have the L along the School Street,
Street.
and then the L along the parking lot, with the anchor being the meeting space. One clear advantage is that that meeting space is kind of centered between the two, the department, the school department and the town hall, so that somebody doesn't have to go through one other, area to get to that meeting space, but certainly
Phil's
shouldn't be the
problem.
deciding factor.
Jack, although I like your suggestion, I like mine better, just so you know.
All right. You wanna, Diane, did you have a question? I heard.
Well, I don't know, just that I remember from the master facilities plan, the way they placed, to try to preserve as many parking spaces was, they put it more on the Swain Green and had the building in that corner there. And then the rest was parking all around it. But again, that was closer to the street, making it more predominant, spot for it. But, I mean, yeah, I do agree that a two-story would be far better than us going 3 stories. And I think people that live around in the area would prefer that if there is a way to accommodate that in the design.
Okay.
That's it.
Want to continue on?
Yeah, well, the scheme F is the one we just showed you, site plan. We didn't get a chance
Right.
to get the plans done.
Understand.
We did update the E plans, although we got this done before the survey come in, so here it is, but I'm not sure how much it's really useful at this point.
Looks very nice.
Great, thanks. So, I just wanted to let you know that, because this is the plan that is basically, that we're gonna use, what we did use when we started to put together F. What we basically did, as you recall, when we had D, it was longer, and we squished it, pulled it up this way. And so we're gonna continue squishing it down and thicken it up a little bit. And so you'll recall that some of these things we talked about, these spaces are a little bit more horizontal, it helps with, get some window space into them. When they get a little longer, it's a little tricky. If we end up on the side of the hill here, and squish it that way, these will neck down a little bit, but we'll work that out. The major change here is that we talked to you about how we have the stairs in the back and in the front, and we flipped them over to the back. We did take a look at that, and I think it works out a little bit better.
Okay.
One of the other things that we're talking about is this stair here. We talked about how the possibility is that you can get in the stair and go up and then out at the exit floor, one floor up. You don't really need it. And we kind of think of a stair towers as kind of running up all the way up and down through a building, but we could probably eliminate it and not have, we could save the space and not have to pay for a stair and just have it serve the second and the third floor. We only have, if we end up with a scheme that only has 2 floors, then it really only has to come from the upper floor down and up. And so it really doesn't need to be. And that was one of the things when we started to look at scheme F, we actually pulled up, and it really just runs down from the 3rd floor and out. Because you need 2 ways out of each floor, and we have 2 ways out of the ground floor, and then you actually have 2 ways out of the 2nd floor if it's built into the side of the hill, and you don't need stairs there either. You really only need stairs for the upper floor, so we may be able to pull some of those things out.
Phil, just a question on your scheme F, where it was going to be further compacted. Does that mean the height of the building goes up?
No, it's just, I'm sorry if I said height. The overall length would squeeze down, and then the depth of the building would get a little thicker this way.
Okay.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that the building has to get taller. Floor-to-floor height would basically stay the same.
Now, Phil, these schemes here, do they they do not include the DPW 6 people, right?
This does include
This does.
DPW, yes. DPW is this kind of mustard color here.
This is the second floor
This
that they
is the
will
second
put
floor,
on?
and Public Works is in there.
So now that they're gonna be gone, so you'll reconfigure, so the.
So the overall building, the building that I showed you sitting on the site there, scheme F, includes this square footage. So if I pull another 2,000 square feet overall, that building's gonna be a little smaller, too. So that
That's
makes-
helpful.
That is
Yeah.
helpful. Now, if we end up getting squeezed, it will be helpful to take that out.
Excuse me, Doug, is he showing scheme F? Do you
No,
have a?
here, we do not have a scheme F, it has not been developed yet. He was talking about the DPW being removed from the second floor and how it
Right.
would reduce the overall footprint, the square footage.
So apparently, I'm just trying to absorb everything here. So now we have, so we do have a potential wetlands area that we're going to, you're gonna have a meeting with conservation about that, correct?
We will.
The conservation the planning director, planning conservation
Planning
director.
director to talk about the wetlands there. What about our geotechnical work now? Now that's wetlands, but where do we stand with our geotechnical work? I don't wanna have
So-
Phil, I have to have Phil come back and say, you know what, the geotechnical work, you're gonna have to move that building again. And, so,
Geotech is typically done when you know where on site the building is gonna sit. Because you don't wanna drill holes all over the site, you wanna put it where you think it's gonna be.
well, I mean, we have a general area that we know where it's gonna go right now.
Yes, but until we nail down exactly where that wetland is and what the setback issues are gonna be, we don't really know for sure.
So the geotech, I mean, the geotech, literally the structural engineer comes back and gives us a plan of every location he wants a boring, how deep he wants the borings, and usually a few of the borings are way down. And that's usually what happens when you've agreed to where the floor plate's going to go. And what the geotech will tell us is the type of soils that are below the building, so that we can determine what type of foundation the building will have. So the soils will determine what the compression strength of the soil is, so we'll know what size footings to put in, or whether we're doing big spread footings or thin spread footings or whatever. And it'll also give us an indication of where groundwater is. And that'll be helpful to the civil engineers also with regard to determining how to divert water and where the water's gonna go permanently.
Okay, so no borings, so the bottom line is no borings have been done yet, and that's not unusual not to have the borings
Correct.
done yet.
Correct.
Is
It's a little
that
early.
correct?
It's
a little early.
Okay.
Yep.
A little early, okay. I just, I'm thinking,
We-
bad news.
No, I mean, this is why we're doing this study, is to flush these problems out. And, it's a good thing we flushed it out. I think this is a positive, not a negative, because had we gone a little further down the road, it would have been bad. We would have spent a lot of money and not been able to go too far. I mean, we're doing the right things here.
It's a process.
This is the process. Paul, you're right, this is the process.
So Dan, before Phil would even look at an L-shaped building, y'all gonna meet with Valerie and go over then the wetlands?
So before we meet with Valerie, we're gonna get a botanist out there to truly identify all of the,
A botanist? Oh,
right,
okay.
determine the upper and lower plant types and the soils. If the soils aren't hydric, there's arguments to be made on where the line can be, and that's where the Conservation Commission comes in, and you literally present them your case, and they have their specialists, and you come up with an agreement on where that line is. And where that line is, we flag, and we'll resurvey that one line, which will take a couple of hours to do. Now that we have all the datum points set, coming out and doing a quick resurvey is a simple thing to do.
It's all part of our due
So
diligence.
in the RFP then, or the RFP, whatever you sent out to get a delineation, you didn't specify in there that they'd be a botanist?
I did not. As a matter of fact, I was quite shocked that they flagged it.
That was really intended to be a survey,
It
wasn't it?
was intended to be an instrument survey, not an instrument survey with a wetland line. So imagine our surprise when it came back with a wetland line on it. So, but looking at what we got back from the field report, it warrants further due diligence by us as a team so that we get it right.
Okay. Thank you.
So I don't think you need to go through the next two, I mean, that second and third floor, I mean, a third floor on the next one.
It's pointless.
I think
Yeah.
that the scheme, I don't think that we're gonna go out there with a botanist and find out that it was all a big pretend. So my guess is that staying away from that end of the site may end up being in our best interest.
But it will determine whether it's, 10 feet more or 10 feet less.
Yep.
And that may make a big difference as to, how big the L is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Continue on. You got massing models, I know you had something I had asked to.
So you would ask us to take a look at the massing. You're familiar with these slides again. We've got the overall. And so we took a look at what the Swain would look like, just to kind of remind folks. So we did, Elena actually did the model of the Swain School. We did a little bit of research, found some old photographs, we counted the bricks, figured out how big the building is, and then kind of dialed it in on our CAD program, checked a couple of the dimensions, sizes of doors and windows, and all seemed to kind of add up. So we're pretty confident that we've got the overall size of the building. The other thing that we found is, you'll recall you shared with us a survey that had an overlay for the carnival that the 4th of July folks use. That survey actually had a layout in the pavement. It looks like they must have done that survey before you cut out the rectangle and repaved it. It looks like maybe the edge of the pavement was still there around the building, and that's what shows on that survey. So between that and the photographs, and we kind of went back and forth, and we were able to dial in. This building had a little bit of a bump in the back that was a little narrower and stuck out about 12 feet. Does that sound familiar to folks? And so we did a little bit more research, and we found some photographs that were taken during the demolition from the back side of the building, and there is a narrower part there. So we think we're pretty close to what this building
Is that what you remember from kindergarten, George?
looks like.
4th, 5th, and 6th grade, yeah.
So we didn't put any windows or anything in there, but that's, that's a big building. That is basically 2.5 stories above grade. You'll recall that there's some larger windows here. This water table line was up at about the 5 or 6 foot above the grade, and then there's some pretty big windows. You could look down into the lower floor there. That pretty much ran all the way around. I'm not sure if it was an auditorium or something in the back. There aren't a lot of windows in the back side.
Oh, the
Is that what,
WCTV is
that's,
on the-
WCTV was in there? Okay.
Yeah, there were 2 entryways besides the one in the center.
Kind of over on this ends here, yeah.
Well, the detective bureau was there for a long time.
Yeah,
Fire escape out the back.
yeah, the fire escape out the back, correct.
So this is kind of,
Downstairs was the cafeteria in the basement.
so this is a view kind of standing on the lawn here at the corner across School Street. And then we also did a view from this little round section out on the common. And that's what that looks like. It pretty much blocks out most of the Buzzell. So that's just the edge of that kind of. So it's a pretty good sized building.
Yeah, it was.
So that was kind of an interesting thing to go. And so we have that now in the model, and if anybody wants to see it in conjunction with any of the other views or whatever, so you can compare, just let us know and we can turn it off or on.
Residents of School Street thought that the other plan into the hill was gonna block the view.
Yeah, depending on where your house is, this, that, I'm sure if you were right across the street from that, it was probably made a big difference in what you can see.
Gentle reminder.
I do have a question. I would go back to to this, the existing conditions, or is this site existing conditions?
That,
That one there, correct?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can see the footprint on the old plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it looks like, there's a little tongue that kind of sticks out here, maybe that was a stairway or something, but if you look at the survey, and I don't have an image of it here, you could see there's a bump in that survey that, for the carnival layout, that looks like it might have been the raw edge of pavement after they did the demolition, but before this patch was done. So it makes sense to me that they kind of squared it off before they put the patch in, took out the little pieces, but
You can see the color, that's,
it's definitely a different color on the pavement there where it was patched, yeah.
And you can see someone put a pipe into that.
But
drain.
my question
Yeah.
was, I know when you
Catch
did the
basin.
parking lot layout, now I'm looking at here, and the blue line, that is the property line, correct?
Yes, and the red line is setback.
All right.
Based on your
So I
zoning.
don't know how far over you went with the parking, I'm trying to think of it now, but it looks like the blue line cuts through some neighbors' yards there.
Yeah.
Yes, and that shakes out in this survey here. It's a little hard to see, but, because I've graded down. But there is a fence line that's shown kind of in pale red.
Yep.
And that fence line is
Right
about
up to the parking
3 or
lot.
4 feet into my parking lot. The blue line is the property line. There's also like a play structure, like
Yeah.
half off of the play. of
You
the-
can see that in the photo that was just up.
Yeah.
That's right. That was in
And
that photo.
I was a little concerned that maybe
Yeah, I
They
don't
were
know
over
how
the
the
property
town
line.
addresses that.
the survey has.
We send them a letter.
Well, it's an encroachment issue that, yeah, we'll have to.
We send them a letter.
Well, there's a fence area behind the,
Two properties.
behind the Fourth of July building where they used to store the barrels and stuff, right?
Right.
So that,
I think
that-
I think
in that fence
the
out-
property line goes straight up from there, but you can see the yards go past that.
Yeah.
They claim that
Right.
land
It's
kind
these,
of.
these two,
Approach.
that's
sure.
the
Yeah.
line between those two,
Yep.
and so the fence line pretty much pops out like that. If you can see it on here any better, but.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
wondering how the property.
You can see it.
Yeah, that's the line right there.
Pretty good size area.
This, in that one, there's a fence in between this one. And that's, they actually flagged that little play structure that bridges the
Yeah,
line.
we're not an encouragement.
Yeah.
We're gonna need an enforcement committee soon.
And they may not know. They probably don't have any idea.
well, that will have to be addressed with a letter to them, I
Right,
would
yeah.
imagine.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's-
And there's no adverse possession on the town.
No evidence.
No, fortunately.
No.
Yeah, so they may be a surprise for the neighbors.
All right. No further questions?
What is
Well-
that, Dan, what does that mean, adverse possession? What do you mean?
In zoning in Massachusetts, if you take care of an area uncontested
20 years.
for 20 years, you have the right to go to land court and say that that you've taken
been
care of it
maintaining it.
and you've been maintaining it, that it should be part of your property.
Okay, and it's a 20-year,
It's 20 years, but it doesn't apply to municipalities, it only applies to like private to private. It's pretty rare it gets granted,
have
but
to-
every once in a while it does.
The owner of that property has to be aware of
Right.
what's going on. So say you built a shed on your neighbor's property, and he got who you did it. Like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, and then 20 years later, he goes, I need you to move
He gets a
that.
letter in the mail.
Yeah.
Guess what?
And then you go, I've been maintaining
not a good letter.
that.
Property taxes are going
I'm
down.
aware of it.
yeah.
It's pretty rare, but it does happen. If
Oh,
you read land
there's a
court
case
cases,
on
they're pretty
Barker
cool.
Street. Yeah, that I know.
You know, every once in a while, the land court grants it, and you're like. Usually it involves like coastal areas too.
All right,
So I guess from a committee standpoint, the only thing that we need to make sure this evening is that you guys have everything you need to get the botanist out there. And Mr. Town Manager, you said that that's gonna happen at your end. Is that, you see any issues with that happening?
I'll arrange it all and I'll get
Right.
a quick agreement over to the town manager. We'll get on it.
And once we get that, I think, again, we should set up a meeting, Phil, myself, you, with planning and conservation.
6 or 7-page report with little pictures of the actual wetland plans and explains what the plants are.
We do have some time, yeah.
Yeah, we've got a little time. You kind of,
Well, yeah, we should take advantage of this window here this next month
you
and,
know, well, you guys all get a month off. We'll keep working.
yeah,
Uh,
well,
Not really a month off.
There'll be a little extra in my envelope.
And we'll look at these other schemes in the
Let
meantime,
Jeff
so that
know.
when we meet.
Let Jeff know, yeah.
It'll be a thank you note.
Dunkin' Donuts gift card. All right. OPM on the discussion of public outreach.
So we did another newsletter, and probably we're gonna start working on the presentation for both committees after the next committee meeting. We're gonna combine the two for your presentation at town meeting, which will be 2 weeks after that, or 2 or 3 weeks after that. So you can decide how you want to get the information to these guys, but I think we have enough to be able to update the public on what you guys have been up to for the year, and you know, there's certainly a ton of information out there, especially if you go to the website.
Well, our next meeting will be on the 13th, just to kind of look at and approve
Right.
what we're gonna
A
have.
quick meeting.
And that's going to be enough, because at the town meeting, it's not going to be a long presentation, we're not voting on these.
I assumed 8 slides combined for both projects. No,
I don't even, we'll be discussing, you and I. It's more like, just to give them an update where we're
want just
at.
a readable.
That'll be most likely where we'll be going.
Okay, all right.
so the 13th, is that are we meeting at 6?
It'll be 6 o'clock. I'll have to confirm with WCTV.
When May was it?
April 13th at 6.
Your school
Right, then
committee
Dan
meetings
said
have
we were taking
changed,
the month of
right?
April off.
Yeah,
Well,
we'll
Did you
move
say
to-
that?
From
I might not hear
no,
it.
you heard it right. I meant from a developing new material.
Oh, okay.
So Phil's not gonna, we thought, at the last meeting, Kevin, what we thought was it would be, to give the public adequate information, would stop developing new material. So the material presented at town meeting was the latest and greatest, and then would start right back up after the town meeting. So that, you know,
But we are
we
gonna
could
have-
put together, we could put together something that changes, you know, which has been happening, you know, we're going so rapid with these meeting.
Right, but we are gonna have new material with the new design, the L shape,
So,
right?
At the meeting and after the 13th, after town meeting.
After town meeting.
That's the-
After town
Well, I
meeting.
have-
We'll be working on it, we're just not gonna show it to you.
Because, you know,
on the 6th.
the
Right, but so now
individuals are
it may be
meeting,
covered,
you know,
but-
every Wednesday.
I
At
know.
some point,
That's why we're taking 2 weeks, you know, both of them are
Okay.
you're gonna have 3 weeks off, actually, because, well, you guys aren't, because you're gonna have your town meeting, but we're gonna have a skip meeting we're gonna have a really short meeting on the 13th to go over a presentation. We're gonna have a
So
really
we
short
won't
meeting
be
on the
meeting on the 27th, pretty much.
You're not gonna meet on the 27th, and you're not gonna meet on the 3rd, or whatever it is, the first May date,
The
4th, and then we'll be back to the schedule
Right.
at 11th, and
I'll get that all out so people have it, you know.
that's what I meant by taking a month off.
The 11th?
So the, Judge, is that what you said, the 11th would be after that meeting on the 13th, the next one for the town hall would be May 11th?
Yeah, I think that's how it worked out.
Okay?
and you're going back to the 6 o'clock hour.
Yeah, we only did this for the school committee and the school department because they had a meeting
13th and then
today.
the 11th.
We said no May 4th meeting, is that right? For
No,
senior?
May 4th.
13th and then the 11th,
Excuse me,
Split between.
11th of May, right.
you're
Is
gone?
the school committee meeting on the 11th?
Yeah.
Keep shifting it around.
That's the second Wednesday, so that's back to normal.
Back to normal?
Back to normal.
Yeah, we should
As
have
normal as
this
the school
on the
committee
school
could be.
committee night.
No, usually our senior center building committee is on that night, so we try to alternate them.
Yeah, we're usually on the off weeks.
Right, that's to accommodate.
Let's accommodate you guys.
Oh, right.
We love you.
Gotcha.
So does that mean we're doing the 18th? And the senior center meets on the 11th?
Senior Center, so we would have to be the 18th.
No, why wouldn't we, when's town meeting?
I mean, it's the 30th.
30th.
Why wouldn't we meet on the 4th?
Senior Center. When are you guys?
We're the 11th.
So why,
So this committee meets on the 4th?
why
we
can't
can
we
meet
meet
on
on
the
the
4th?
4th?
And then you move the senior center to the 11th.
Right, that'll give us enough time to get the botanist report done.
So we are meeting on the 4th?
We weren't meeting on the 4th.
No, not, yeah, trying to avoid, I mean, it doesn't make sense to continue these meetings on school committee nights because half the group.
Right, so we have to get off, make sure you guys are, and then you're back to your normal schedule?
As of now, yes.
Yeah.
So you're meeting on the 11th and the 25th,
Correct.
so we can meet the 4th? Yeah, okay.
4th, the 18th, and the,
We are meeting the 13th, right? I'm not good at this stuff, you guys, so.
Yes. Yes.
Changing these.
We are meeting the 13th.
quick
That's
meeting on
just
the
for the
13th,
approval.
just,
And it's back to 6
I
o'clock.
have a 6 to
And
7
we are
on
meeting on
the
the 4th.
13th.
You're good, Kevin, you're good.
At April 4th or
May 4th.
May 4th?
Is it,
We are meeting on the 4th, is that right?
April 4th, is that?
April.
May
We're
4th.
talking about May.
All right, we moved into May on you.
Okay.
April 13th
So 4th is back on?
and May 4th.
Right,
Which
so
committee?
for this committee.
Town hall?
Scheduled meetings takes more than
Town
the
hall,
product.
And then the 11th would be the other committee, which I won't mention.
Yeah. There you go.
I'll be in the air that time.
In the year?
Yeah.
Where you go?
Tampa,
Okay.
2 weeks.
Waiting to for it get hot down there, is that what you mean?
Okay.
My
Town meeting is-
graduated high school.
All right, so that's a
Can we just
discussion.
run down the
Yes.
Wednesdays, I'm sorry, through, just through March.
All right,
So
so,
March 2nd, I'm sorry.
no, we're on the 30th of March today.
sorry.
So you don't, we're not
April
going-
6th,
Right.
meeting or no meeting?
April 6th?
Yep.
Yeah, so we had,
6th at the senior center.
Senior center, yeah.
yeah,
We do have a meeting.
yeah, and then the
April 13th.
13th is this one here.
And we'll meet just to go over the,
And that's just for, did we have, Dan, did we have one on the 20th? I think so, that was for approval.
20th to approve the, same
Right.
deal. The
Same thing as the
13th
13th.
to approve
Then
what
no
what you're gonna
meeting
say about this
No
committee.
meeting on the 27th,
okay. May 4th, Town Hall, School.
right. May 11th, Senior Center Building Committee. And eventually, once we get through this, then we can back off on some of these.
So the 11th is gonna become a senior center.
The 11th will be a Senior Center.
Is May 4th enough time for Phil to come up with that new design, or do you want to go down to the 18th, Phil?
No.
I mean,
No, that's,
That's plenty of time. Well, he has that little break.
yeah.
He doesn't need to come on the 13th, does he?
I wouldn't think so.
No.
Well, and he's already got the new building rough sketched out, so you're halfway there.
I just have to color it.
Just have to give Kevin, you gotta give Kevin Vig for
have
it.
to
and other
color
than
it.
that,
that's right. I'll be sending you my design.
All right, I'm square now.
You all good?
Yes.
Okay, so 13th, not for us.
For me, not for you.
Correct.
And that's just approval.
I'll just come here every Wednesday. I'll just leave if you don't need
If we
me.
happen to need you, we know you need that.
Not in the car.
All right. Any public comments? No? Susan, did anything you wanted to say?
Just for the audience that's listening, when you went down through Wednesdays, 3 of those Wednesdays was for senior center.
Right, so that's why we're trying not to confuse you.
Okay. For the
As the
town hall
schools.
ones were April 13th and May 4th, and the senior center was April 6th, April 20th, and May 11th.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to
You
clarify
got
that for the audience.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
They can always look at the website at the town.
And
Don't worry, I'll send you texts. You'll be
For no.
Has he let you down yet? You've
We
been
are-
here.
I won't see anybody again until then. So,
We are going to be at town meeting, right? Phil and I?
Yes,
Okay.
just in case there's any,
Any questions?
but I
questions,
won't see you again
conversation.
before then.
And I'll make sure Lee's there also.
I would plan for the whole day.
Awesome. That's, what day?
April 30th.
30th.
Saturday?
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
we're the first article.
We start at 9 o'clock,
9 AM.
Saturday, April 30th.
George said he was buying breakfast for us.
George, I
Get you
have
a
a
glazed
question.
donut.
Glazed
No, I'm not buying
donuts.
breakfast.
Leftover from Krispy Kremes.
Go ahead.
Would it make any sense on April 13th to have like a combined board meeting, just for everybody to understand what's gonna go on at the town meeting? Just put it out there.
I
Or you
don't-
wanna leave everything
Let's
separate,
leave it
that's
the way it
fine.
is. Yeah, I would not want to confuse it.
All right.
There'll be a quick meeting, we'll go over what we had.
Okay,
Okay?
fine, good, okay.
All right. No public comment. One more item on the agenda.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn for Paul Malorani. Do I have a second? Jack Holloway. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Town meeting, if you like.